Hundreds of protesters turned out for a noontime rally downtown today, and they claim that their people are being jailed and tortured in Yugoslavia. TV50's Cheryl Hurd has that report.
Free Kosova, USA!
Some 500 Albanians marched in front of the McNamara building to call attention to alleged atrocities against their people in Yugoslavia.
They are violating human rights in Yugoslavia. 3 million Albanians are being treated as third-class citizens. Even some of the constitutional rights that they had enjoyed since 1974, they're being taken away right now.
Demonstrators say their people are treated like blacks in South Africa. They say many Albanian leaders are jailed for speaking out, and it's time that the American government take notice and do something about it.
Intellectuals are put in jail, like we have a name by Professor Damaci, who was young, 25 years old. He's been in jail for over 28 years. The news media doesn't really give the issue to let the people know what's happening there.
Peter Avija says he was tortured and spent 2 days in a Yugoslavian jail for speaking out.
They have no mercy for Albanians, to be honest, the ones that are in prison, which are 80% of the prisoners in Yugoslavia.
Thousands of Albanians are planning a trip to Washington, D.C. on Wednesday. They want President Bush to hear their concerns and hopefully pass legislation to help the people in their country. In Detroit, I'm Cheryl Hurd, TV50, 10 o'clock news.
Leaders have warned that troops may be used to quell the worst ethnic Albanian unrest in 8 years. Thousands of ethnic Albanians clashed for the second day with police in Pristina, that's the capital of Kosovo. Violence flared after the Kosovo parliament voted to cede much of its autonomy to Serbia, that's Yugoslavia's largest republic. Now, under that measure, Serbia gains control of Kosovo's courts, the police, and the civil defense. Police toting automatic rifles fired tear gas and wielded batons to disperse the demonstrators, and of course we'll have further details as they become available.
Militants clashed with police in Yugoslavia for the third day in a row today. Police used tear gas and heavy clubs to disperse thousands of stone-throwing demonstrators. Ethnic Albanians in one southern province are protesting constitutional changes that give more power to Serbian leaders. There were no reports of injuries or arrests in today's unrest.
Tear gas and clubs to break up demonstrations by ethnic Albanians today. Thousands of Albanians in 2 separate clashes threw rocks at police in the third straight days of protests in that country. The clashes are over constitutional changes that limit Albanian autonomy in a southern province. There are no immediate reports of
in the Yugoslavian province of Kosovo. It was the third straight day of violence involving ethnic Albanians. Police used tear gas and truncheons to break up the crowds. It's not known if police fired back or if anyone was hurt. The Albanian majority in Kosovo is outraged about new laws that put the region under the control of Serbia, Yugoslavia's largest republic.
Today, with some ethnic Albanians taking shots at police and police using tear gas to disperse angry mobs. The Albanians are protesting constitutional changes that limit their autonomy in Yugoslavia's Kosovo province while expanding the rights of the Serbian minority in the area.
Riot police have entered the province of Kosovo in Yugoslavia, but have not been able to quell the uprising. 3 people were shot dead, including 2 police officers, during violent demonstrations today. Heavily armed police used tear gas, clubs, and a water cannon to break up demonstrations in 9 towns. Ethnic Albanians in the province are protesting new rules which give Serbia greater control of the region.
The muddy, poverty-stricken town of Juricevac has become the center of the worst ethnic violence to hit Yugoslavia in 8 years. Not since the bloody riots of 1981 have there been such ugly clashes between the country's ethnic Albanians and Yugoslavian police. Then, as now, the conflict was Albanian nationalism versus Serbian rule. The focal point is Kosovo, an autonomous province of Serbia, the largest republic in Yugoslavia. Nearly 2 million ethnic Albanians live there. For years, they have tried to break away from Yugoslavia and join neighboring Albania, but the Serbian community is trying to stop them. The current violence was triggered last week when the Kosovo Assembly voted for constitutional changes that would give mostly Christian Serbia greater control over the province. Serbia says the changes are necessary to stop ethnic Albanians from persecuting the 200,000 Serbs who live in the area. But the ethnic Albanians, mostly Muslim, are afraid the new measures will erode their national rights and trigger a Serbian crackdown. Now thousands of ethnic Albanians have taken to the streets to protest. In Jurasavac and other towns in Kosovo, helmeted police and paramilitary units have been battling the angry Albanian rioters since last Thursday. 2 policemen have died so far in the skirmishes. Authorities say some 150 Albanians have been arrested already, most of them young people who vandalized public property and hurled stones at police. The police are using tear gas and batons to break up the protests. The provincial violence is but one problem facing Yugoslavia's new Prime Minister, Ante Markovic. The country's inflation rate is running at 340% and climbing. At least 15% of the country's workers are unemployed. In poverty-stricken Kosovo, 36% of the residents are out of work. Simon Vickery, CNN reporting.
Ethnic Albanians in the southern province of Kosovo have fought with police who have responded with gunfire and tear gas. Today, 2 police officers and a demonstrator were killed, and Kosovo was placed under a curfew. The demonstrators are protesting changes in their constitution, giving them less of a say in local government.
In province of Kosovo, a curfew is in effect after 2 police officers reportedly were killed in violent protests with ethnic Albanians. 8 people were injured in the 5th day of the worst rioting in 8 years. The Albanians are protesting a cutback in self-rule. Last Thursday, the Republic of Serbia, of which Kosovo is an autonomous province, amended its constitution to have more control over the region.
Today, where 12 people have been killed and a dusk-to-dawn curfew has been imposed in the southern province of Kosovo. 6 days of demonstrations and fighting between ethnic Albanians and police have led to the banning of all public gatherings. The Albanians protest an erosion of their power. The government recently put control of Kosovo province largely in the hands of Serbians. Police say rioting Albanians have fired at them from rooftops. Albanians say they have seized control of a power station and attacked a police depot in Zur. That's a few miles from the Albanian border.
Today, the Parliament of the Serbian Republic approved constitutional amendments that have sparked 5 days of rioting. Hundreds of rioting Albanians have attacked a police station in Yugoslavia's Kosovo province today. Belgrade Radio says 1 person killed, 14 hurt in that incident. According to the Information Ministry, 16 have now been killed in 2 days of rioting. Meanwhile, ethnic Albanians are protesting constitutional changes, giving the Republic of Serbia more control of Kosovo. The fatality today brings the death toll, as we said, to now 16. Yugoslavian authorities have ordered security forces to use every lawful means to crush the protests. The Parliament of the Serbian Republic approved constitutional amendments that have sparked 5 days of rioting. Hundreds of rioting Albanians have attacked a police station in Yugoslavia's Kosovo province today. Belgrade Radio says 1 person was killed, 14 hurt in that incident. Ethnic Albanians are protesting constitutional changes, giving the Republic of Serbia more control of Kosovo. Yugoslavian authorities have ordered security forces to use every lawful means to crush the protests, which have killed 16 over the past 2 days.
Yugoslavian officials say 16 people have died in riots in Kosovo province in rioting over the past 6 days. Ethnic Albanians are angry that the Republic of Serbia has enacted laws to reassert its authority over the relatively autonomous majority Albanian province. The Albanians have stormed a police station. They're smashing windows, throwing rocks, and overturning cars. The foreign minister of neighboring Albania has criticized Yugoslavia for its attitude toward the ethnic...
6th day of ethnic rioting in Yugoslavia's Kosovo province, the death toll has risen to at least 12. About 500 Albanians stormed a police station in Zur today, defying a ban on group gatherings. 1 demonstrator was shot and killed by police. Authorities say 9 demonstrators and 2 police officers died yesterday. The wave of rioting was triggered by legislative moves to impose Serbian rule over the predominantly Albanian province. 6th day of ethnic rioting in Yugoslavia's Kosovo province. The death toll has risen to at least 21. About 500 Albanians stormed a police station in Zur today, defying a ban on group gatherings. 1 demonstrator was shot and killed by police. Authorities say 9 demonstrators and 2 police officers died yesterday. The wave of rioting was triggered by legislative moves to impose Serbian rule over the predominantly Albanian province.
Battles continued to rage in Yugoslavia's Kosovo province today. 1 teenager was reportedly shot to death and dozens wounded when police fired into a rock-throwing crowd of about 500. At least 21 people have died and scores have been wounded in 6 days of demonstrations by ethnic Albanians who want more autonomy. The Albanians make up about 85% of the province's population.
About 500 ethnic Albanians stormed a police station today and were driven back by gunfire. The confrontation left a teenager dead and raised the death toll in 6 days of violence to 21. The unrest in southern Kosovo province is Yugoslavia's worst ethnic strife in 8 years. Tanks are on the move and soldiers have slapped a curfew in the province. Restrictions are being enforced by police in full riot gear with tear gas and automatic weapons. The riots were triggered by legislative moves to curb self-rule in the predominantly Albanian province.
To control the rioting in this province in southeastern Yugoslavia. Ethnic Albanians are protesting attempts by the Serbs to exert more control over that province. They've banned public gatherings of more than 3 people.
21 people have now died in the violent demonstrations taking place in Kosovo province in Yugoslavia. Ethnic Albanians have been fighting with police for 6 days now. They are protesting new constitutional amendments which would limit self-rule for the province. The Soviets...
Republic province, Kosovo, say there's still tension, but the violence largely has subsided. Funeral services were held today for some of the 21 people killed during a week of ethnic rioting. CNN's Burton Jones has details.
They began to bury the dead in the Yugoslavian Republic of Serbia Wednesday. 2 police officers were among the more than 20 people killed in a week of violent confrontation between Muslim ethnic Albanians and Christian Serbians. It is the worst civil unrest in Yugoslavia since the end of World War II. The focal point of the conflict is the province of Kosovo in Serbia, the largest republic of Yugoslavia. In 1974, Kosovo was granted autonomous status. 85% of its nearly 2 million inhabitants are ethnic Albanians. But there are several 100,000 Serbian Christians who charge they have been systematically persecuted by the Albanians. The latest fighting broke out last week over proposed constitutional changes that would give the Serbians broad new powers. The Serbian parliament ratified the changes Tuesday. The Serbs claim the changes will end their persecution and will also help prevent a move by ethnic Albanians to annex Kosovo to neighboring Albania, a charge the Albanians deny. Observers say the violence has been pushed by Serbia's Communist Party leader, Slobodan Milosevic, to deflect public attention from the ravaged economy in the republic. Inflation is expected to hit 400% in April, and the unemployment rate in impoverished Kosovo is more than 30%. Leaders of other Yugoslavian republics charge Milosevic wants to enlarge Serbian power in upcoming elections and that Milosevic himself has ambitions to become another Tito with near dictatorial powers. The Serbian government has moved in more troops and armored equipment into the troubled areas in an effort to end the current deadly protests. 1981 mass protests in Kosovo claimed at least 9 lives and brought martial law. Officials are quietly gearing up for the anniversary of that event this Saturday. Burton Jones, CNN, reporting.
In 1974, Yugoslavia's Marshal Tito divided the largest province, Serbia, into 3 federal units: Serbia, Kosovo, Vojvodina. Tito's brand of communism, independent from the Soviet Union, also allowed each district a measure of self-rule. Kosovo is home to nearly 2 million ethnic Albanians, most of them Muslim, who outnumber Serbs 8-1. But Serbs demand Kosovo be returned to total Serbian control. They accuse the ethnic Albanians of trying to secede, to merge with neighboring Albania. Not since the riots of 1981 has Albanian nationalism in Kosovo butted heads with Serbian rule and drawn blood. Then, 9 people were killed as troops moved in to enforce martial law. 8 years later, observers see in this week's violence a possible rupture of the country's fragile federation of 6 republics.
The bitterness is greater, larger number of people are participating, and of course from the Serbian side there is also much more pressure.
The recent clashes erupted when Kosovo's assembly proposed giving Serbia more control over Kosovo's police, civil defense, and courts. Serbia ratified the changes this week, charging ethnic Albanians with trying to drive Kosovo's 200,000 Serbians out through systematic persecution. Ethnic Albanians claim the new laws erode the autonomy Tito gave them. In recent demonstrations, Albanians evoked his name as a rallying cry. Yugoslavian police this week arrested at least 150 people, some said to be Albanian intellectuals. Authorities claim they've also seized guns, explosives, and documents that show the riots are part of an armed uprising. But observers say Serbia's Communist Party leader, Slobodan Milosevic, instigated the riots to take public attention away from Serbia's economic troubles. This year's inflation could reach 1,000%. And in Kosovo, 30% of the workforce is unemployed, compared with 15% in the rest of the country. The last government resigned over the nation's economic ills. And leaders of other Yugoslavian republics say that he wants to broaden Serbian power in upcoming elections to further his own political ambitions. Troops and tanks have been out in force in Kosovo for a month since a miners' strike triggered a partial state of emergency. Soldiers remained on alert for even more violence at week's end, marking the anniversary of the bloody riots in 1981. For the Week in Review, I'm Don Harrison.
For joining us. We will go to Yugoslavia in a moment, but first here in Washington, signs the United States and its European allies are becoming increasingly distressed with the way the Yugoslav army is handling the crisis. Just a few moments ago, Secretary of State James Baker met with the Dutch Foreign Minister Hans van der Broek, and Secretary Baker said the United States and the European community are considering cutting off arms and money to the central government in Belgrade.
We are giving consideration to certain steps that could be taken. One such step that I think we should give consideration to is the suspending of aid and assistance to Yugoslavia under the circumstances. In a case such as this, where there are suggestions that the army has overthrown political supervision and is acting on its own, we might give some consideration to the prospect of some sort of an arms embargo upon the shipment of arms to Yugoslavia as a means of registering our grave concern.